Live with Bill Boyle. Bill lives in D.C. Bill's one of my favorite people to talk about when it comes to news and politics and history and all of the things. He can speak to a lot of things, including music. I cannot. But you have who is that shirt you're wearing?
Oh, that's not music. It's a thing that's popular in Ireland right now. It's more Irish, more blacks, more dogs.
Oh, I thought that was the name of a band. Why is that popular in Ireland? More blacks, more dogs, more
Irish. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Irish were quite poor in the 1940s and 50s, and they were emigrating to England, where you went to look for a hotel room or a place to live, an apartment in England. You would see signs that said no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. And that was literally the segregation. We just won't rent. And of course, the dogs part was just purely an insult. Well, now that Ireland is a wealthy place, wealthier per capita than England, it's sort of a clapback at. It's A, about Ireland becoming a wealthy place, but B, it's an anti-racist message as well. And it's very popular. Ireland is feeling its oats these days, culturally and politically, and that's sort of an expression of that.
Very interesting. I think I want to sell those shirts. I would like to buy them.
You can find them online. They're like super popular.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. There you go, everybody. Very interesting. Lots to talk with you about. That's why I reached out to you, because so much shit going on, as always, that you could take a look at. Thanks to anybody who's joining us live as you come on in. It'll be in D.C., where there was a horrific, tragic shooting of 2 National Guard members. One has died of her wounds. The other guy apparently in critical condition. The guy accused of shooting the 2 National Guard members was an Afghan national who was also part of a CIA-backed paramilitary group that did night raids in Afghanistan. Obviously, we brought a whole lot of people here from Afghanistan. When we left, we were always bringing Afghans in because they were helping us in Afghanistan. If they proved their trust, their worth, their credibility, that was part of the exchange with a lot of them. And certainly thousands came and started a new life in America. This dude apparently had some real issues, and he did what we all know he did. And what's the reaction in DC like of this? Because to me, my hot take, quick reaction was those 2 National Guardsmen shouldn't just have been standing there in their uniforms doing nothing. Anyway, they're sitting ducks. I don't like it, and I have never liked it. They're not necessary, but break it down for us.
Well, so I think that the ultimate point about all of this is that when you fight wars for a very long time overseas, you end up fighting them at home. And in this case, what's going on in D.C., the reaction is not, by the way, bring in more National Guard. It's quite the opposite. It is that they serve no purpose. It puts them in danger, right? This is a safe city, but it makes them a political target. There is a deep sense of betrayal amongst Afghans who are in the U.S. or especially still in Afghanistan about how the Trump administration sold them out to the Taliban, locked the Biden administration into pulling out, which, by the way, I argued that we should pull out of Afghanistan, to be totally clear. But obviously the way it went was terrible. And then worse than that, the Trump administration.
I argued it in 2009. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
And Obama surged.
Yeah, exactly. The surge was ridiculous. But the Trump administration has been making it brutally difficult for Afghans who helped the United States to get to America. Unlike what we've done in any war, Vietnam, thousands and thousands of Vietnamese were allowed to come here because that was felt like the only moral thing to do. Well, this guy got in because of his CIA connections, because of his paramilitary connections. This guy was a shooter and a door kicker for probably more than a decade in Afghanistan. You're bringing back, occasionally you're going to get somebody who is just incredibly damaged, who feels great resentment. And unfortunately, the Trump administration has put these National Guardsmen who are not occupying the city. They're standing around on corners. They're doing landscaping. They're trying to wave at my kid as he goes to school in the morning. Like they're not police. They are a symbol. Okay. They are a symbol of Trump's vision for how he wants to control democratic America, meaning violently and militarily. And of course, political symbols get attacked. What they also are innocent people. The National Guard's people that are here, I've spoken to them. They don't want to be here. They think it's stupid. And by the way, most of the ones I talk to are from Tennessee, South Carolina, conservative states, West Virginia, I talked to some of them. These are not liberals, the National Guard, that are here, quote unquote, guarding the city. But they understand fully, because they're experiencing it day to day, how stupid it is. And because they've been used as a political tool, they, of course, become a target for political violence.
Right.
And it's just a disgusting, cynical, awful thing that's being done to the National Guard, by the way. And also it's being done to D.C. Trump is trying to militarize this city because he hates it, because the city politically disagrees with him. And because he politically disagrees with D.C., one perfectly nice, cool person who was going to do great things with their life is dead. And another person, another guy, has extraordinarily terrible head injuries from it. This is on Donald Trump. It's his fault. And the smart thing to do, by the way, would be to pull the National Guard out of here tomorrow. Instead, you know what they're doing?
Surge.
They're sending 500 more, but they also are pairing a DC police officer with each patrol.
Why?
To protect the National Guard people. I mean, it's and by the way, they need a police officer there, because a police officer is trained in these situations and may have been able to stop it before it happened. He may have noticed what was going on. So, it's absurd that now the police in DC, who apparently are inadequate, according to Trump, are protecting the National Guard, who are here to apparently stop crime in the city. It's a utterly absurd, tragic,
You can never stop that type of crime, by the way. Just to be clear, that is a targeted killing.
Yes.
There's all kinds of different names for that kind of killing, but you don't stop that kind of crime. Police and law enforcement strategies and techniques are to stop crime as a policy, all different types of crime. But if you want to kill somebody in America with a gun, you can, is the sad truth. This guy, we can take a look at. As a result, of course, the Trump regime is bringing more National Guard in, limiting, re-vetting those that are here from Afghanistan, in many cases probably sending them back to their deaths, even though they helped our beleaguered efforts there in Afghanistan, stood by Americans, kept them safe, kept them alive so they could come back to their families, served at any number of responsibilities, from translators to, as you mentioned, door kickers and shooters. And now we're going to send them back. Also, the commander-in-chief tweeted or posted something about no more third world people, which means nothing, because that's not a category that the State Department uses to determine people from different countries. It's just his racism. What are your thoughts of the reaction from the administration as a result of this Afghan national and the targeted assassination of those two uniformed National Guardsmen on your streets?
Well, the two ways to deal with this, there are ways you can do to mitigate the risk of this sort of thing happening. And the two ways to do that are to invest money in mental health care and to enforce reasonable gun control. Both of those things the Trump administration will never do. Instead, what they're doing is saying, according to Stephen Miller, that when someone comes to America, they import their whole culture and they can never assimilate into American society. That is such a gigantic amount of racist bullshit. It's amazing. Stephen Miller is a Belarusian, right? I mean, he's Jewish. Did he import, Hebraic law into America? No, he did not. My family's Irish. What did we import? We brought some things with us, as everybody does. That adds to the stew of American culture. And the Trump administration is just, as always, picking whatever works for them to push their basically fascist and very certainly racist view of America. And that's all.
And also looking for any possible excuse to militarize America's cities for any number of reasons, including something to do to suspend or affect the midterm elections, right?
Correct. They actually started talking about the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act over one random shooting by a guy with mental health problems. It just gets at how absurd they are. These are wannabe dictators looking for a reason to impose a dictatorship. And again, I don't think it works. I think in the end, democracy wins, but we shouldn't avoid what these people are clearly attempting to do. Thankfully, they're doing it in the most inept, crude, and anti-American way possible.
So I also want to talk with you about several other issues that are happening. Of course, we'll see what happens with that, how that gets adjudicated. They're going to, I don't know. It's by the way, ripe for conspiracy theories because this guy worked for the CIA. So you just see a Jason Bourne theory already born. This guy was a trained assassin.
Right.
And the government used him to distract from the Epstein files or whatever else.
Yeah, that's bullshit completely. And the Epstein files are not front and center in the news because December 11th is when the due date is for the White House to release all of the files.
I did not realize that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay. I was wondering.
December 11th is when the law passed by Congress says Trump has to do it. What we're going to see happen almost certainly is that Pam Bondi, right before they release them, is going to say, oops, we have an investigation and we can't release some of the files. She'll claim it's about Democrats. She'll claim it's about whatever. They're going to try to redact some things, certainly. And that is just going to keep the issue burning and alive all the way until the midterms. And that's okay. I mean, I had friends yelling about this. Oh my God, they're not going to release them. Okay, fine. The longer they don't release them, the more it proves that there's obviously something in there. I have always been an Epstein file skeptic. I've always been one. Now I'm a lot less skeptical than I used to be because of the way they're behaving. Trump was never as melty down about anything, about the Russia stuff. He always had a certain kind of FU attitude about the Russia, all the evidence about his connections with Russia, which always suggested to me, or did eventually suggest to me, that there probably wasn't a lot of there. In this case, Trump is going to the mattresses completely. And that is the first time I've ever seen him do it to this extent. And I think obviously there's a terrible vulnerability for him in the files. And it doesn't really matter whether they release them or not. The longer it goes on, the more people know what happened.
I think it's a really good point. Boyle pointing to the long game and politics as opposed to having that hot take impulsive reaction that many of us have, which is an emotional reaction. We want this now.
Yep.
Like we want everything else. We want justice right now. But what you're saying is, yeah, me too. It'd be great. Love to see it. But if they don't want to create transparency because of what they're concerned about, let them drag it out. It will continue to be a top line issue and they can do whatever they want to distract from it, but it is not going anywhere, is what you're saying there. Talk to me about this really important issue that I think every American should be concerned about and talking about, which is the targeted killings in the Caribbean.
Sure.
It's fishing boats, these drug boats, who knows? People have heard the kind of probably arguments for and against. It seems like overwhelmingly Americans aren't that concerned with this because, hey, you should just be able to kill bad guys. But obviously, if you think about it for 1 second and you want to live in a country where there's a rule of law, the government can't just kill people they think are bad. And if they blow up a boat and they kill a few of them and there are survivors that are helpless in the water, you can't then go, quote, finish them off. I just quoted Hegseth. I don't know what he said. I don't know if that's a direct quote. But the news is that's what happened, that they, during one of these dozens now of targeted killings, that there were survivors, and Hegseth basically from a control room somewhere said, finish them. And now it would seem that even Republicans in the House Oversight Committees, those that oversee the Department of Defense, that's their job. And obviously many in the Senate are looking at this and going, listen, there's some crimes here. There might be some crimes here. We got to look at this. We got to reel it back. What are your thoughts on it? What are you hearing from all of your well-sourced DC steakhouse? You probably hang out at steakhouses with them. Friends.
I hate steakhouses.
Whatever. Irish bar friends that you talk to.
Yeah, Irish bar is way more my speed. But I haven't heard anything, that is not in the news from anybody. But I will tell you this. We indicted people during World War II, World War I for doing exactly this, Vietnam. It is Geneva Conventions 101 that you do not kill wounded on the battlefield. That is, it's called hors de combat. It's people wounded on the battlefield, right? Mm-hmm. You do not kill the wounded ever. That is true when you're in a war. Where this is even more absurd is they don't even have a legal justification for hitting these boats in the first place. So forget about the murders of the people who were wounded, where Hegseth goes back and tells his staff to kill them. The strikes themselves are murder. They are homicides. We don't know specifically who's in most of these boats. By the way, if you're a person who gets on a boat that happens to have drugs and you don't know, maybe you're a refugee trying to get to the Bahamas and you get killed in that is murder. This has been murder from the day one. Rand Paul, to his great credit, has been calling it murder since the very first airstrike. And that's just is what it is. The fact that Hegseth is so blitheringly stupid to say, go back and hit these other people, just proves how utterly unqualified and what an absolute moron he is. Somebody called him, a military guy I know, called him a terminal captain. And what he meant by that was that
frozen in his rank.
Frozen in his rank. One of these guys who's incredibly gung-ho, who doesn't know anything about proportion and will never, ever get promoted above captain because no one above his rank trusts him. Something else most people don't realize is that the unit that Hegseth fought in the Middle East in was busted for war crimes soon after he left. He comes from that mindset, that sort of...
And they defended one of the worst war criminals of the, quote, war on terror. Hegseth and Trump defended this guy whose name is escaping me, but... And there were several others, but this guy was court-martialed. He was tried. He was found guilty by his fellow special forces team members.
His own unit turned him in.
There's so much reporting and investigation on it, but no, Hegseth stood by him. He also murdered a man who they had captured on the battlefield. He
stabbed him in the throat. Actually, that's what he did.
Stabbed him in the throat in front of everybody.
What's so, just if people think, well, these guys are just quoting, like, being goody two shoes about war or combat or whatever. The whole point of not doing this is that it doesn't then happen to your own soldiers when they are wounded in combat. It makes sense for everybody, however brutal the war is, to not have their own wounded be murdered on the battlefield. Right. That's just basic humanity. It's actually self-interested for everyone to not want this to happen. And I'll tell you what really proves why it's murder. Several people who were on boats that got hit, that were then picked up, were simply delivered back to their home countries.
Right. No,
didn't want anything to do with them.
No trial, no charges.
Just send them home. Send them home. No penalty, no charge, nothing.
Hey, don't say anything about what you saw here. All right.
I don't even think they did that. I mean, but it proves that they know they have no case. They don't. And by the way, if you want to prove that an administration is lawless, well, have it kill people without any legal sanction. That's it. Bottom line. There's no question about that. I have friends who say to me, who are, sort of conservative legal people, who say, like, well, we haven't really hit the constitutional crisis yet. Bullshit. Of course we have. We're killing people without even a fig leaf of justification in any legal sense.
And so as a result of these killings, as well as in the previous administration, MAGA Teresa ordering to shoot protesters in the legs, as well as many other orders that are illegal, unlawful, whatever you want to call them, inhumane, horrific, stupid, short-sighted, unhelpful, you name it. So as a result of that, Senator Mark Kelly and a bunch of other Democrats make this video, which basically is like, hey, everybody, uphold the law. Not really a controversy, reminding people, everybody knows why. Now they misquoted them and they said, don't follow the law. Everybody's probably been following this, but they want to Hegseth is talking about bringing Mark Kelly back into the military and court-martialing him because he can't do it to anybody else, apparently. How do you look at this guy, Pete Hegseth, who served in the military, but we know what kind of guy he is. He was a Fox TV guy. He never did anything in the military to be particularly proud of. In fact, he had shameful service. It could easily be said. Meanwhile, Mark Kelly got shot down, got almost shot down, flew to space shuttle a couple times. His wife got shot. I mean, Mark Kelly, say whatever you want about his personality, his policies, his face. It's hard. He looks like me if I was ugly. And the the point is, Hegseth is going after that guy. How do you see that? How do your military type friends see that? How do you phrase like just that dynamic, and where does it go? Because it's going nowhere. It's just so embarrassing to talk a big game and talk about bringing this guy in and making these threats, and then it goes nowhere. You bring Comey in, you bring Tish James in, and it just blows up in your face. They just keep failing. They make threats and they fail. Oftentimes they're paper tigers. I don't want to understate it, but it's just it's got to be so embarrassing at some point if you're Hegseth and others.
Well, Hegseth and these folks are playing to the cheap seats of their own base.
Right.
So that's really what he's doing. He thinks that this looks strong. And by the way, Hegseth is somebody who was talking about how tough the Russian military looked before the invasion of Ukraine.
That's
and
right.
All those buff guys in striped shirts.
He hate women in powerful positions. Hegseth, from women in combat to women in leadership positions to women's female statues to memorials of women. He hates women getting any credit or being in any position to get credit. It is unbelievable.
Well, and all those buff guys in the chewing glass in the Russian videos before the war in Ukraine are now like fertilizer in eastern Ukraine today.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Literally, most of the VDV is dead from that era. And what's going on here, it's a good microcosm for MAGA in general. A lot of MAGA are mediocre people who hate people that have excellence. And Kelly truly has excellence. I read an article that discussed all of the medals that he wears on his chest in his uniform. I suggest people go look up the medals that Kelly has. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. He has medals that he was awarded multiple times.
And Hegseth
and everything else.
criticized him for having the medals on in the wrong order in the wrong place. Apparently, people are saying that the photograph was Hegseth was wrong. But even if it were wrong, even if they were displayed wrong, the idea that I or anybody would go after someone who served in the military and had a bunch of ribbons in any country who served anywhere and be like, you got that on wrong. What?
Well, exactly. Well, that again is the mediocre hating the excellence.
You have your medals on wrong is some balls.
That Medal of Honor you've got, it's laying a little low. Right?
Medal of Honor's loose you.
Just completely absurd. And what's going on is that they'll try to do this. I'm very sure that they're going to attempt this. And I've been telling people that is the beginning of
bringing Kelly in, and
they're going to try. No, they're 100% going to try.
No way.
I'm telling you, they're going to try it.
Come on.
Is it stupid? Is it fruitless? Yes. Will it make them look bad? Then they're going to try it.
Even to their base doesn't think that looks bad. I mean, Mark Kelly, he did.
You talk to MAGA people, you know what the core.
I don't know what they think about this. I have a hard time.
The Epstein thing will split them. This won't split them. What it will do, I will tell you, it's going to really piss off people in the military.
Sure.
It's going to really piss off people in the military, A. B, it is the opening shot of the Kelly 2028 campaign.
Right.
If they court-martial him, God forbid for them, God forbid they're successful, because they'll be tangling with the military.
By the way,
the military.
Mark Kelly for president. I mean, listen, I firmly believe more now than ever that personality is everything, far more than policy. Personality is everything when you're running for office. And, Mark Kelly has the personality of a space shuttle commander.
That's true. But if Mark Kelly
super smart, really brave,
and says, I'm here to run for the honor of the country that has been these people. I'm telling you, Pete, you never know what'll happen. And I'm just telling you, I mean, Jimmy Carter and George Bush Sr., they were like watching paint dry.
Yes, I know, but those are the olden days. Now we're running only.
But again, these balls will bounce in directions that we're not going to be able to predict. And I think that it is a gigantic mistake to do this. I'm sure it was incredibly stupid to indict Comey and Letitia James, and they did it, and they're getting humiliated in court then.
Right.
They're still trying to figure out how to continue to do it. These are people with dictatorial instincts that have weak dictatorial tools, but they're looking at the midterms that are coming up, and they're smashing all the buttons and pulling all the levers and trying to make whatever they can happen while they think they have the most ability to affect the future. That's for
sure. This next, between now and the midterm elections, who knows what they're going to do, if it's going to be free and fair, but they certainly are going to try to get as much as they can done
Right.
before. And although they're losing seats by the day, they could literally potentially lose their majority. We can talk about that in a second, just with the numbers. I don't think it's likely at all. But if you keep having Republicans resign, that's going to be an issue if this special election in Tennessee is at this Tuesday. If the Democrat wins there, which is unlikely but possible now, which is crazy, but because of the momentum, the numbers are getting thinner and thinner in the House, that margin. And so they're trying to get as much as they can done. Also, even though they don't have the dictatorial powers, as you said, he does have immunity from the Supreme Court, that decision, which nobody had predicted would happen, which can't believe they gave him. But it is the reason why he's doing a lot and basically telling people in the Department of Justice, in the Department of Defense, and the Health Department, do whatever I say or you're gone. Like,
well, also remember, though, he's lost a lot of those cases. I have friends at state who got riffed, who got paid all the way up until
he's trying to do these things and commit these crimes because he's allowed to, and he's giving potentially extending that immunity. And it's like, did he give Hegseth already a pre-pardon? Like, listen, I'll pardon you for whatever you do. Just do whatever I say. Kill anybody.
Here's the thing, and this is where they are profoundly stupid. The smart move would be to keep the government in one piece and get it to do what you want to do with the staff that's there. Because when you riff all these people, you boot all these people out, you're actually damaging your own ability to govern. That's why things aren't working very well. That's why we had the flight problems. That's why they
don't care about governing. They have no idea about governing.
But here's the thing. He may not, and that's his Achilles heel.
Well,
you and I talked about this. Somebody like Stalin, was a bureaucratic genius who created a bureaucracy that buttressed his power. Trump is firing the bureaucracy, and he's not bringing in people he has no bureaucratic vision. He has no sense of building a structure that's going to last beyond him. And so it won't. I mean, it's not. And by the way, we talked about the Epstein files a minute ago. An effect that's having already is that he's losing his ability to enforce doctrine on his own MAGA base. Marjorie Taylor Greene, terrible person, but not a dumb politician. And what Greene has figured out is that this is going south. She probably knows things that are in the Epstein file that are going to totally
one would think.
But. And she wants out so that she can pick up the pieces when Trump flames out. That's what she's doing.
I mean, I don't even know.
You look at Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert was brought into the White House.
Yeah.
And they said, do not sign the discharge petition for the Epstein vote. She said no. Lauren Boebert is like
Jamie Raskin's giving her all this credit. I guess they're buddies.
Well, it's not that she should be given credit. She knows politically it's smart to break away from these people on this. And you're starting to get that happen. In Indiana, one of the Republicans.
I want to give these women credit, though, also, that some of them are just women who have been victims of sexual assault and don't want. I mean, I think at least two of them are that voted. Obviously, Nancy Mace tells everybody who wants to know that she's a victim and then uses it against people and victimizes them. It's crazy. But regardless, I want to believe that there are women who are just like, I can't.
Well, I'll give you another example of a man. A state Republican senator in Indiana who's quite conservative.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Came up about Trump called Waltz a retard, and this guy said, if you're wondering why I'm not voting to redo our districting in Indiana to the benefit of the Republican Party, it's because these people are gross and disgusting and violating the Hatch Act, and here's a good example of it.
I'm glad you mentioned that story because in case people don't know, stupid, he posted on social media, he called Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, he called him a, quote, retard, a word that a lot of people don't use anymore. And this Republican congressman who's state senator whose voting needs to redistrict has a Down syndrome child. And like a lot of other people, unfortunately, you got to have the personal experience to have any empathy. It's so pathetic. But regardless, he's like, fuck that. No, I don't like it. I don't like the president of the United States using that word. And therefore, you don't get what you want from me. And give him credit, fine.
Yeah, I will say, though, we have to point out the French do use that word a lot. Well, but there it just means late.
Yeah, well, I know my daughter is dating a Frenchman. I've learned a lot.
C'est bon.
So got to just ask you then finally about the Ukraine-Russia deal. Nobody follows this stuff closer than my friend Bill Boyle, who's well placed to know what the hell is happening. It's crazy to think that people are negotiating anything between two countries, between two governments who have never done that, who have never been an intern or a young deputy or a mentor to buy. You think about so many people who spent their life negotiating and practicing diplomacy in some of the hardest situations. Anyway, just throw anybody in there. Anybody can do it, I guess. They make it look easy. Steve Witkoff goes and he loves Vladimir Putin. He put his hand over his heart when he saw him come in the other day when they met in person. He talked about how great a guy he is in an interview recently. He's negotiating, and so is apparently the Secretary of the Army, Driscoll, guy named Driscoll, instead of Hegseth. Rubio is somewhere. Who cares about the Ukrainians? Ukrainians aren't invited again.
You're leaving somebody out that's quite important.
I'm leaving. Is it Mike Pompeo? I hope. No. Jared Kushner's involved, which makes no sense. And there's shadow negotiations, different parties negotiating with the same partners, which is also unprecedented because no country would ever want that. But he hosted The Apprentice and likes to pit people against each other, or he's just an idiot and power vacuum. But the bottom line is, my understanding is, after all of this is said and done, it's just another delaying tactic, and Putin is just going to keep the war going, and that's it.
I wish that were the case.
Oh.
But when Jared Kushner shows up, the weaker party that can't give his family billions of dollars in deals loses. And Jared Kushner is sitting at the table in Miami as we speak, actually, with Rubio and Witkoff and various other people selling out Ukraine. There was a leak of a
selling out Ukraine right now.
Yes. I think a European intelligence agency leaked a document to the press a couple of days ago that lays out all of the business deals that the Russians were offering Witkoff, and through him, Trump and Trump's posse, billions of dollars of business deals offering to them. What's happened is the Russians finally figured out, if you just offer these people billions of dollars, they'll do whatever the hell you want. And Trump bit hard on it, pushed by Vance. Vance has a ideological reason for doing this. Basically, Vance is a fascist follower, a quisling, and he wants to see somebody like Putin win over Ukraine, which has a unfortunate tendency to actually vote for their leaders. And so what you're seeing is the Vance people. Driscoll is Vance's pick for the head of the army. They're the army secretary. Driscoll is also apparently quite a nice guy who plays well with others in Washington, talks to the Democrats, talks to the press, is a far smoother, less insane version of most of these guys. But he's in his position because Vance put him there. And he is Vance's person. And so they want to push out Hegseth. They want to put Driscoll into his shoes, which is why Hegseth's not there, why Driscoll is, and why Driscoll's doing the running for the vice president. We unfortunately have this confluence of Trump's greed, Jared Kushner's greed, and Vance's ideology all pushing this forward. The Europeans are absolutely white hot apoplectic and are talking about, from what I read today, taking economic measures against the United States that will shake America's hold on the world economy.
Come on.
Nope. That's what the Europeans are saying below the radar. Well, I think they can do it. And I think that if they finally say, okay, America really is against us, then we have to go out on our own. We've got to become a super state, and we have to fight our own corner. We can't depend on the US anymore. This is exactly what the blob, you're familiar with that term, right?
The foreign policy thinkers in the Beltway. Yeah.
Right. The sort of conventional wisdom foreign policy thinkers in the Beltway. It's exactly what they were afraid of. It's exactly what all of the people who were sort of soft, the anti-Trumpers and the pro-Trumpers, they were always like, the blob is ridiculous, and they've been running American foreign policy, they've been screwing up, and none of this bad stuff's going to happen because America's too strong. Well, if Trump does this, if this goes through, Trump will have accomplished breaking America's hegemony.
Well,
because Europe really will. By the way, Europe is thinking about saying, fuck it, let's go for broke to defend Ukraine, with or without the Americans. And if that happens, then, the global order has broken. And maybe it gets reconstituted differently, maybe in some way that's effective later. But this is a betrayal of every single American soft power initiative since 1945.
So
particularly because it's being done just purely the plan they put up is there'll be a Russian-American fund funded with frozen Russian money that effectively America will gain all the benefits, and the Ukrainian one as well, where America gets the profit. So this is a protection racket. There's not even and by the way, say that it ends up being $300 billion. That, in terms of like world security and America's
in trade,
you're basically getting pennies for giving up pounds. It's a completely stupid, idiotic, shooting yourself in the foot. It's giving up the Sudeten land supposedly to save Czechoslovakia. And it will be you're sowing the seeds of the next 5 big wars.
Wow, that's quite
and it's just true. It's just true. Does this all happen? Maybe if some genius statesman comes through and maybe Russia collapses tomorrow, maybe China all of a sudden gets scared and says, whoa, we have to try to keep the world from falling apart. I tend to be a middle to long-term optimist, but God, getting to the next stage is going to be really bloody if this comes.
Well, new leadership could change everything.
It can, but if it's too late for Ukraine, then we're going to be talking about defending the Baltic states, Moldova, Romania, Poland.
Yeah, I was actually not thinking about that. I was thinking about the relationship between the U.S. and Europe, much less the U.S. and Canada, who last week, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said that the U.S.-Canadian relationship, he said, we know that this decades-long process of our ever closer economic relationship between Canada and the United States has ended.
Yeah.
Has ended. Like, he pronounced our special relationship dead. The Europeans are not providing.
They should totally do this. This idea of sort of saying like nice doggy while you look for a rock. Get the rock out right away, because the Trump people are purely.
Wait, what's that fucking analogy? What are you going to do with the rock? You're going to hit.
Well, the rock is throw the rock. Say, okay, we're done. We're done. We no longer.
What does the dog have to do? What does the dog?
Well, there's a joke about diplomacy that the art of diplomacy is saying nice doggy until you find a big enough rock. Right? Dog is growling at you, and you find something. You keep saying nice doggy until you find something big enough to drive it away.
You appease the dog until you can find something to hit it with. Is that analogy?
That's correct. That is exactly it. And
Jesus Christ.
Well, diplomacy underneath the surface is a rough business. But the bottom line is that these countries have to kick Trump right in the balls. They have to, because it's all that he understands. It's all that he respects. Yeah. And by the way, we're talking about Trump like he's some third world tin pot dictator. Yes, that's exactly the right description. He's a tin pot dictator, and he thinks that way, and he has no conception at all of the other soft power levers the United States has. In fact, like USAID, like Voice of America, he's gone out of his way to destroy them.
One thing that there's so much behavior that we have not seen from modern authoritarians around the world that we have seen from ours. And I think that we don't talk about it enough because it's almost hard to believe. But when we think about the current day dictators and authoritarians around the world over the last 5-10 years, who's in office and power, who is gone? Gaddafi, Hussein, Bashar al-Assad. When we like Assad wasn't like, the guy's buttoned up. The guy was calculated. The guy was intelligent. He wasn't insulting reporters and calling them idiots. Like this, he wasn't wearing makeup and dressing up like some of them do. I mean, there's so often we compare what our guy now, Flacido Domingo is what I'll call him. We compare him to other current, and it's not fair to them because he's way worse. The way that he acts is insane. He's old and doddering and stupid. The way he calls reporters idiots and like that, they don't do that in other countries. They may not have access, by the way. They might not have access to their their leader because it's so terrible, China, et cetera, North Korea. But anyway, I just wanted to close with just that point to make sure that we just always talk just about just how crazy this time and this person is in power, and his day-to-day behavior so much wilder and crazier and unorthodox than anything we've really ever seen. And I mean anything.
Yeah. I mean, what Trump has that these people don't, he benefits from this incredibly powerful state that the Democrats, small d Democrats, built before him. So he can do all these things because he comes from such a stable state that has so much power and has so many complex layers of control and ability and function. And that's the ironic part, right? Somebody like him couldn't exist in a state that was a mess. He can only exist in a state that is really extremely powerful and stable. Because if Bashar al-Assad was wearing makeup and doddering around yelling at journalists, one of his generals would have put a behind his ear.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Right?
I mean, any of them. Yeah. Any of them. Or it just wouldn't fly. People wouldn't.
Xi is the head of an extremely powerful state. If he behaved like Trump, he'd be dead in a week. Or they would send him to the farm, as my parents used to say about dogs that we had that bit people.
Oh.
Right? But they would not allow it because they can't, because their states are too unstable for them.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate your time today. I think we recapped a lot. I love your perspective on everything. I don't know what else there is to say.
And one last point. More Irish, more blacks, more dogs, buddy.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to get that shirt. Ladies and gentlemen, go follow Bill right now on Blue Sky if you haven't already. And support my work at patreon.com/PeteDominic. Thanks for joining me on a Sunday, all of you who joined us live. And we will talk to you tomorrow on the regular podcast. Thank you, Bill.
Take care, guys. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.